All right, guys. Welcome back to another episode, GPPD podcast. I'm your host, KD. Got my buddy here with me. And today we're going to talk to Mr. Cody.
Hello.
I appreciate you sitting down with us, bro.
Thanks for having me.
I promise it won't be too bad.
Okay. It's not going to be any worse than the conversation that we were having before.
15 seconds ago.
Yeah.
All right, so before we get started, couple things. Make sure that everybody listening, if you know anybody interested, we still need good people. Detention, which is jail. We need those guys and girls. We need communications. So 911 dispatchers, if you're interested, grandprairiepolice.org. Get on there, fill it out. I know they're going to ask you to fill out, about 15 pages?
Yeah.
20 pages, so... bear with us, but yeah, get online. We need some good help.
And on the detention side, we were talking a couple weeks ago, and they have this a program where they're going to actually pay for their education. I don't know if it's just towards criminal justice or what, but they're doing a program through Texas A&M Commerce. So if you're thinking about getting into law enforcement, it's not only a good way to get in, do a couple years there, and potentially move over to our department, but potentially get education paid for and work anywhere. So
hell yeah,
yeah, not bad.
Which I hope that's a program that maybe we get access to eventually. I hope. I mean, kind of. I'm not a school person, but if they offer to pay for it though, I'd be so stupid not to do it.
Oh, we have something like that, don't we? The tuition reimbursement.
I was gonna say it's tuition reimbursement right now. But
I see reimbursement. I'm like, that sounds complicated.
You got to pay for it up front.
I don't need,
Hope you get it back.
But if they're like, hey, we're going to pay for it up front, then it's really hard
to
say no.
That's funny. All right, we're going to jump right in. This is my newbie. He's like my neighbor.
Is he?
In the locker room.
In the locker room.
Oh, okay.
Look, he was like, you moved next door, though. So I'm gonna give him a hard time. But all right, Mr. Cody, from the beginning, bro, I want to hear it. So let me make sure all the listeners are on the same page. You're not a lateral.
No.
See, we talked to so many laterals, I start assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super basic. So I grew up in a town 30 minutes from here. It's called the Colony. What it is,
Rich kid.
What it is now was not what it was when I was a kid. It was similar to GP of just a bunch of fields. I went to college. I came back, and then everything blew up.
Right.
So everybody sees it now, and they're like, "Oh, you grew up. You're rich.
Yeah.
You're rich kid playing cop." And I'm like, "That's not like how it was when I was growing up." But I went to Sam Houston for 4 years. Loved college. Met my wife there. And then I graduated from college in May of 19, and I started the academy in August of 19.
Oh, wow.
So I had like 2 months to kind of do all my last running around type of stuff, and then I was in the academy for the next 32 weeks, whatever that translates into. And then when I graduated, the week I graduated from the academy is when COVID became a thing.
Oh, that sucks.
Like literally like the day we were supposed to graduate, everything shut down. So we had to like beg and plead to the chief to give us some type of graduation, but it wasn't like what everybody else has. Like right when it comes, it was like 5 or 6 people could come to your graduation. It was in the CVE. It was like a very quick 5 minutes. You get the blessing, get your badge, have some pennant, and then you leave. And that's when all the COVID protocols came in. So all businesses shut down. We weren't supposed to be making traffic stops. Like all that stuff like went out the window.
Right.
So like how
did training work for you?
Look, I was going to say he was watching videos on his phone.
So that's the thing, was that it was very hard to do that. And so we were like doing like the 4-day on, 10-day off type of rotation.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
And then like we're all CID, there was no specialized units. It was everybody was in patrol, and unless you like absolutely had to talk to somebody in person, it was doing stuff over the phone or making sure you had like that distance. And so it was very, very drastic from what I was being taught in the academy, and I obviously had seen in growing up in TV shows and movies. And then it was like, hey, don't do anything. Just sit there in a parking lot until you're dispatched to something.
Right.
Because if you're rolling around and you see something, it's like the potential for you to get into a chase or whatever.
Right.
And so they're like, hey, you're answering calls. That's all we're doing.
Right.
Also in like our FTO program, you have to make so many traffic stops, do X, Y, and Z. So you're showing that you're learning the skills and whatever. And it was like, yeah, that was all set aside.
Right.
And so having to learn to do all that stuff kind of after FTO essentially was like a big game of catch up. Yeah. Because I definitely wanted to earn my keep and show that like, hey, I belong to be here. Or I'm good to be here. Mm-hmm. But my FTO was like very drastic from everybody else's. Everyone else had stories of, oh yeah, FTOs were doing X, Y, and Z. And towards the end of my FTO, like last phase and a half, it got kind of back into it of like, hey, this COVID protocols are over, so let's go back and hit it hard. Right. We're pulling over everybody for wide right, just everything. Yeah. Just so I can get the repetition in. And my last week of phase 1, I made like 25 stops in 1 week. Yeah. Because I had to have those stops. Right. And I think I had like 0. So I was walking up, hey, that's crazy. I'm officer so-and-so. This is why you can pull it over. And kind of just like, all right, bye. Like, have a good day. Yeah. Like, barely even running people. I was getting their DLs and seeing if they have any warrant or anything. It was very going through the motions of doing stuff. Right. And then, like, the next day coming to work, it's like, hey, you're going to go green light. And let's go out and do all this stuff and make subject stops. And
you're like, you're phase 3 or phase 4. Why
exactly. Like, why don't you know all these things? It's like, because we weren't allowed to. We weren't having briefings. It was like the drive-through briefings of like scanning your head to make sure you weren't sick. Hey, what time do you want lunch? All right, cool, bye. Yeah. And which was like the weird part of that. Like in the middle of all that, everyone was like, "Yeah, we don't want to do that." So we would just huddle up in the library. So we're even closer than a normal briefing. Right. And it's like, all right, don't forget to social distance. And you're like, I was just like 4 inches from somebody. Like, okay, whatever. And then one of my buddies, Greg, was my classmate. He got COVID like 100 times.
Did he?
So he would like have it. He'd be out for like, the month, well, however long you had to be off. He'd come back.
7 to 10 days.
Yeah. And then, they would like stick him with his FTO and then he'd like pop positive. But it was always like fake positives. He never like felt bad. He was like, I feel perfectly fine. But we were having a test all the time and he would get pop positive.
Do you think he was doing it on purpose?
I don't think so because like he wanted to get into stuff just as much as everybody else did. But we had for like a week during the COVID protocols, we had briefings back. And the first day of briefing, so I was on days B at the time, so Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It's like our Sunday or Monday, whatever. We come in, have a briefing. We're still like spaced out, and then like 4 hours into shift, my FTO gets a call. They're like, hey, somebody popped positive for COVID. We need everybody on the shift to go get tested. And you're like, okay. So we run over to Arlington and get tested. Get the thing shut up your nose.
Dude, and they used to be legit with it. Like they used to take a freaking little ball thing hammer.
It's like to your brain. You're just like, oh, this on both sides too. And so you're just like, oh, this sucks. And then you're like, I hope I don't have COVID. Yeah. And then I always tested negative, but Greg kept getting positive tests. And so his FTO was like on top of like the extra 2 months that it was because of COVID, his was even much longer because he kept missing days. Right. Obviously, eventually, got the blessing. It was fine, good to go. But I'm just like, dude, you're having like 6-7 month FTO programs because of COVID, and he kept popping positive, and he's just like, I can't catch a break. And so while he sees all his buddies, having our loops, he's still an FTO because he can't go like a month straight with actually doing stuff because he's always not pretending to be sick, but popping positive.
You can say pretending to be sick.
Popping positive, and so he couldn't graduate when the rest of us graduated. So
he was in phase 1 for like 8 months. Bro, you okay? I got to do a traffic stop.
That reminds me though, man. Whenever COVID first kicked off, I don't want to make light of it because I know it was. We're super, super, super fortunate in the job that we have where we weren't at risk of losing our jobs. And I know it wasn't the case for everybody, but there was no traffic. Oh. And the first time I got in the car to go to work, whenever there was no traffic, I was like, man, I can get used to this.
It was almost scary. It was kind of like some of those movies, like Book of Eli. It was like, man, there's 3 cars on the highway.
Yeah, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like this should be like rush hour right now.
I felt like I need to go home and start growing some food. Right. Build a big old wall.
Grocery stores are always like bare minimum of stuff. Yeah. And you're just like, this sucks.
But then you go home, the first time you get exposed, you're like, I got to stay at the house for like 14 days or whatever. Yeah. It's like, I guess I'll make a margarita for 2 weeks.
Now, as far as patrol, because we were in a specialized unit that had to help, did y'all have to wear that PPE to calls?
So we had to have like the cloth face mask thing.
Oh, okay.
And then, which like by the end of the however long we were under protocols was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
And then somebody found out that you can just buy them off of Amazon.
Yeah.
And so people would like buy them, and I'm like, but it doesn't. Not that it doesn't do anything, but when you wear it for like 3 weeks in a row, there's probably other germs besides whatever. And so at that point, you're just kind of just smuggling yourself with random germs. You're like probably gonna get sick from more than you would get sick from COVID. So.
Yeah, it ain't the COVID gonna get you. That's the flu. You just got the flu.
Probably how Gray kept popping positive. He just got exposed to it, kept putting his mask on, and they were like, "Hey, you test positive."
Using the
like,
same one.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were like burning through like gloves, just basic calls, like calls you would never have gloves on. Everyone's just walking around doing gloves. I'm like, you're not even touching anybody, but in case you have to, like, you have your gloves on. So it's like, I'm a new guy, so I'm gonna do what I'm told. So,
did you ever walk up on one of those traffic stops and they didn't let the window down and they like hold up a sign?
Oh yeah, and I had
COVID.
my very first traffic stop I made. It was a dude who was older. I guess he was at risk. He already had like a bunch of health problems. He had like 3 masks. He had like a mask on and then like the shield and something else. And so I'm like,
was he in the car by himself?
Mm-hmm. Already in the car by himself. And so I walked up and I just looking at him. I'm already super nervous. It's my first traffic stop.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then to see that, I'm just like completely forgot I was supposed to say, hey, this is who I am. This is why I get pulled over. He's just like, he throws it against the window, and I'm just like, and my FTO was like, hey, he's good. I'm like, all right, cool, bye. I just go back in the car and we drove off. And he was like, hey, that's not how they normally are, blah, blah, blah. Like, you just, got lucky or unlucky that this was your first traffic stop ever. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever you say. I was just mind blown that he was in the car by himself, had the big mask, had the thing over his face. I think he had gloves on too. And I'm just like, okay, whatever.
And it's funny the things that whenever that was going on that you would see, because every once in a while I'll see a picture from back then and like people wearing masks in a weird situation or gloves or whatever. It's like that was a weird, a wild time that we were just like, okay, we're doing this now.
And then since we're like both in Dallas and Tarrant, or predominantly in Dallas and Tarrant, like you have the Dallas judges still keeping the mask mandate in effect. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Other counties are like, yeah, we don't, it is what it is.
Oh, okay.
And so when stores did open back up, like Chipotle, you're walking in, and even if you're in uniform, they're like, hey, you have to have a mask on. And it's like, well, you can't be unprofessional, and, regardless, especially in uniform. So it's like, I walked in there with like a T-shirt over my mouth or something because I didn't have a mask anymore.
Right.
And so that was like another huge shock of how to like operate under that, because at that point I was on my own already.
Right. So
it's like I just can't win either way I go.
Yeah.
So
well, hopefully no more of that.
Well, I don't know. They're talking about the numbers are up, whatever that means. So
I believe it.
Yeah. Because all the kids went back to school.
Yeah.
So you start putting everybody in these confined spaces. Yeah, everything's strep, flu, COVID, whatever.
Yeah, I got a kiddo in daycare, and he just can't wait to come home every day and just start spraying germs.
Bro, I say the same thing about school, like especially public schools. Oh, whatever's at school, my kids will find a way to bring it home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it happens.
It's weird how like all the people that we get, like all the situations we get put into have like germs and like gross houses or whatever. Yeah. And like I don't like getting sick off something else, but having nothing to do with from work. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like having to deal with people who are bleeding or just don't really have the best hygiene, and like I've never once gotten sick from them. It's all, like the past 6 years I've gotten sick twice, and it was strep. Yeah. So it's like it has nothing to do with touching somebody who hasn't showered in like 2 weeks.
You have kids?
No.
I have a kid.
Yeah.
Once you have a kid, you'll be sick all the time.
Yeah. I was going to say it's going to be runny noses.
Yeah, because you fight people, get in fights with people who have AIDS, TB, all kinds of stuff, and nothing.
You good to go.
Yeah, your kid comes home and coughs.
Yeah. Everybody throw hurts.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody throw hurts. That's funny. All right, bro. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I like this role you're taking.
All right, so you talked about you're not an FTO, which is a field training officer, but you've done a little bit of it.
Yeah, so I just took my board, or had my board like a week ago, so I'm still waiting on that. But I've been filling in, so a lot of our FTOs are SWAT dudes on my shift. So whenever they're at practice or, for whatever reason not at work, then they'll throw me in. So this past 2 weeks, I had a recruit. It was his ghost phase. So the ghost phase of I'm not supposed to be doing anything.
Right.
So on paper, it sounds like, oh, you're just chilling for 2 weeks, but it's like the most stressful thing in the world of having to make sure that they're not doing anything illegal, putting themselves in a dangerous spot or whatever, and then sitting in the passenger seat running to a hot call is like by far the most nerve-wracking thing in the world.
I always say that's the scariest thing in police work is being passenger or a chase. Being a passenger seat in a chase, brutal.
Because I mean, even working nights, like there's still like a lot less people. But in the 2 weeks he was with me, we had like 3 or 4 pursuits. We weren't in them, but we're trying to go assist in them. And both of them, they were like wreck outs. And so we're trying to get a perimeter. We're trying to do whatever we can to help the primary units. And like one popped off, and it was the dude wrecked out at MacArthur in 30, and we're on Pioneer and 161. So he's flying up there trying to get into it, and there's like 5 cars on the road, and I'm just like holding everything, and belts on, and just trying to praying to God that nothing happens. And it's like I couldn't imagine trying to do that during the day.
Yeah, I never did it.
Or if there's more cars on the road.
Well, because there's like most situations, like something in the field or on a call. Yeah, they can definitely get you hurt, but there's still a level of, hey, if things go bad, you still, maybe it's just an illusion, but you still feel like I can intervene on my own behalf and make sure I go home at the end of the day. But when you're in the passenger seat in that car,
you have no control.
You don't have the control.
If they wreck out, you are.
Like, I'm trying to like stomp my imaginary brake to, hey, no, we don't need to be going, we're good. Like there's 14 officers over there. Like we don't need to be there the next 5 seconds. Like we just gotta get there safely.
Yep.
But I mean, I get it. I was the same way when I was a brand new officer. Like I'm not like a vet. I've been a cop for like 4 years, so I'm like a veteran rookie. That's how I would describe it.
Man, you are a veteran rookie.
And so I mean, like, I know a little bit, but I don't. I'm not like a veteran or anything like that. And so I'm like where I was when I was first cut loose of like wanting to run and gun and get there and be the guy that does everything or all the fun stuff or all the hot stuff or whatever. It's like, hey man, like we right now are in a supporting role and we need to go support the dudes that have been in this pursuit or whatever the call is. We need to assist them. So that's blocking something off like a roadway or whatever so they can handle something that happened. Then that's what we got to do. It's not always the running, gunning.
That's the biggest reality check in law enforcement to me. Like when you're like, oh, so and so's in chase, or even if you're in chase, and it gets to the point where it's perimeter, and then you're standing there, and you're kind of hearing the guys who are more involved in the canine search or whatever, and you're just kind of standing there looking at the shadows, like, kind of hope he pops out. Like,
yeah.
Come on, someone try to come fight me or something. Like, this is really boring.
You're on the perimeter and you're just like nowhere near it, but this street needs to be blocked. Yeah, you got to be there. So you're just like, and it's always like when you got to pee. Or you're starving or whatever, and you're there for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just looking around. Like, there's no way he's gonna come over to me. Like the wreck happened like a mile that way. Like, I don't even know why I'm over here. But
and you tell yourself like, man, maybe I'm not gonna jump on. Maybe I'm not gonna jump on the perimeter so quick next time. But then the next time it happens, you're still like, oop,
it's just that natural instinct of like wanting to go help your guys. So
that's funny. So, did you always know that you wanted to be a cop?
Tell the truth.
Yes and no. I don't really remember wanting to do anything else, but it was like my freshman or sophomore year in high school. I had a friend, his sister went to Sam Houston to play soccer or something like that. And my mom was like, oh yeah, they're like the big CJ school or criminal justice school. And so I started looking more into it, and I liked the dynamic of to being a cop. And I was like flirting with a military idea. And I was like, I'm gonna
What part of the dynamics stood out to you?
Just that every day is different, and that it's a big puzzle of having to do something in order to get to the end goal. And so, like I said, some days you're only doing traffic accidents, or some day you're only running traffic, or you're going to these shootings, or whatever the call is. It's a similar call, but it's not the exact same kind of call. You have different offenses, or something else happened in a certain call, and you're like having to sit there and you're like, it could be this charge, but it might be that charge. And so you're having to sit there and kind of just, it's not just, a desk job of doing the same exact thing every single day.
Right.
And I mean, plus, you get to run around and, the 2% of what we know of law enforcement that everybody else thinks is that's all we do is getting in pursuits or running down bad guy or whatever. And that was definitely a reality check of how much paperwork is involved in being a cop. I probably, like, my first year being an officer, I probably wrote 10 times the amount of essays I ever wrote in college and high school combined.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, it's everything. I mean, information reports, all these different reports you got to do.
Yeah.
And you're like, I definitely shouldn't have majored in CJ. I majored in something else because I'm doing a lot different stuff than what I thought I was going to be doing.
Right.
But it was definitely just because I grew up playing sports. So obviously that team aspect of everything, and then just that you could do so many different things. And so depending on the department, like our department, you have all these different detectives, you have the deployment guys, kind of like patrol, but then you kind of do their own thing. So there's just a bunch of branches you can get into, and kind of seeing other desk jobs, like that didn't really appease to me. So I wanted to go check this out. So.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits to the profession is there's a lot of different jobs within the profession. I mean, you could do, like, what I'm doing right now is nothing compared to what I did, on the street. It's kind of more that desk job, kind of more predictability to it.
I think as you get like older and like you having kids, like you kind of run around when you're.
I'm not getting older.
You already old.
When you're getting more seasoned as a true veteran.
I like that.
But you run just like working nights. Like everyone wants to work nights for a couple years, and then it's like eventually it's gonna take a toll on your body. So it's like I gotta go to days. I still want to do fun stuff, but on a normal sleep schedule. So it just you have your fun, and then it's like, all right, now somebody else can have their fun while I need to do X, Y, and Z. And like CID still has their fun. It's just a different kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, you got to be careful. I know you mentioned that you're married, but give her a good schedule, and you better be ready to keep it. Because it's a fight.
That's the weird thing is that my wife like prefers me to work nights.
Oh, really?
So she's like I'm 6'6", and she's like 5'1" on a good day, and so we have like a big king size bed, and so she's like we have our 2 dogs, like 2 little tiny corgis, and she's like, I love sleeping in the bed. Like she's like, I love you, but I enjoy having a big massive bed like
I just
by
want
myself.
less time with you.
So it kind of works out, it makes like the days off. She actually works down the street. So it kind of like definitely helps of everything, and so
y'all be married a long time.
Yeah, and so
figured it out.
And we've been together for 7 years, and so it's not like I met her, as I was a cop, and she kind of knew the whole thing. But yeah, she definitely preferred. Like I could have gone to Days' his last bid, and like when the LT called me, he said, "Hey, where do you want to go?" And I was like, "What's available?" He's like, "Everything." And I've only been here for, like I said, like 4.5 years.
That's crazy.
And I told my wife, I was like, "Hey, do you want me to go to Days?" And she's like, "Do you want to?" I was like, "Not really." She's like, "Yeah, I'd kind of prefer you to say nights."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay." So got the blessing from her, and I still wanted to go to be on nights.
That works, yeah.
Kind of works out right now.
Yeah, I did. I probably said this 30 times. Probably one of those things she's learning to cut out. But I was on nights. I would work nights the whole time. Then I was like, I'll jump over because I had kids early. I'll jump over and do days. I was like, no, it's not for me.
Yeah,
I'm going back to nights. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of guys who go to Days for a bid, and they're like, it's way too hot, so much traffic.
Dude,
like,
Too many people on the road.
I'll just suffer and be tired on my days off because.
Which sounds weird to a civilian, I'm sure, who's listening, as far as like, of course, there's traffic and a sun.
Yeah.
But you get used to being at night, and there's the people who are out at 2 to 5
a.m.-ish.
Yeah, I mean, really, you're going to work, which is pretty easy to identify, or they're out there doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Whether that's burglarizing or drug dealing or whatever the case is, and then no traffic to worry about. There's no.
What we say, no brass.
I was trying to decide mentally if I wanted
He
to
didn't
that
want to say it. I'm gonna say it, no brass.
But yeah,
Leave me
there's
alone.
not the upper chain of command and the civilians that are at the station with us they're not all there. It's a much more stripped down.
It's relaxed.
And it's you're in the building only with the guys you work with and girls.
Yeah.
It's like the LT is like the night shift chief. Like he's the highest
basically.
ranking from 5 to 6 a.m. So
Yeah.
kind of helps guys not be as stressed.
Yeah, and then you go to Days, and it's hot, and there's 400 people in the station at all times, and you're like trying to I don't even know a
Just
good example,
function.
but you're trying to like just make it through a day, and you see the chief of police, and he's like, wanting to chat with you, and you're just like, I don't want to get fired, so I'm gonna talk to you, but also I want to go write my report. It's a lot.
Yeah, just trying to go to like a basic call during the days. I've worked OT for both day shifts, and you're just trying to go to like a normal, like a paper call.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like you're on one side of the town, and it's on another side of the town. You're just like, dude, it takes me 45 minutes to get to this call, and it's like 2 miles down the road. Like it should not be taking this long. So that definitely. And plus, working in an accident on like a highway when it's like 110 degrees outside.
So many of them.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Like cowboy hat, your short sleeves, no matter what you're wearing, you're still like with all that gear on. Yeah, you're just, and it's always like at 10 a.m. So you do your rest of your shift, just completely
soaked in sweat.
smelling and soaked in sweat, and then you're just like, oh, this sucks, dude.
We are not selling days to anybody. They're like, check nights. I don't want no part of that.
It didn't help either. That like we always used to joke. I swear, you could have someone start off in New York to drive to San Fran, and the other way around, and they would cross paths in Grand Prairie and wreck into each other.
Yep, and wreck.
You combine that with the weather, it's like, nah.
It's like you have like 161 in our city. That's like accidents are worked by the troopers.
Right.
They have never, like hardly ever do they have accidents. But on 20 and 30, it's you could be on one accident and then there's another one 5 feet from you. You're like, oh my god, dude! Like, how can we not drive?
Yeah.
But it's because there's like 1,000 people on the roads.
Yeah.
So
It happens. Cody, let me ask you this. So, I know you said Sam Houston State is a criminal justice school. Were you only interested in GP, or did you think about going somewhere else?
So I did test somewhere else. And
Don't even say their
I'm
name.
not going to say the name.
I want to know it. They can cut it out.
Well, you were on my board, so you know where it was. But
Huh?
You were on my oral board for here.
Yeah, he's drank between now. Like, he forgot.
So I had a buddy who tried to go to our jail, and for whatever reason didn't work out. But he kind of put on my radar, and then like a couple weeks later, there was Sergeant Weiss and Officer Husky, like our SRO K9, when they're recruiting. So I walked in, got the pamphlet, the big shiny picture of the cleanest squad car ever when it was brand new, and all of the list of stuff we offered, and then just sitting there talking to him, and he's like, yeah, we actually get into chases and do X, Y, and Z, and that's like before I knew that a lot of places don't get into chases unless it's like a on view like murder or something, and so I was like, oh, like yeah, if I want to be a cop, I want to be able to go do all that kind of stuff, and I came in, and I never did a ride out here. I tested at the other city like a week before. So I had my board for them on a Monday, and then a week later I had my board here. And I got my conditional for both, and then the other place was like, hey, they talk whenever you're in the recruiting process. They talk back and forth with each other.
The departments do?
Yeah, well, at least these two did.
Yeah.
And their recruiter called me and was like, hey, like I met with the chief, I met with everybody. They just needed to call, my people, like my background to sign off and everything. She's like, you need to make a decision. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, do I have a full-blown job offer? She was like, no, not yet, but it's probably blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, why do I have to make a decision right now? She's like, that's just kind of how it works.
No, it ain't.
And I was like,
no, it ain't.
and so I still had no, like, I was in the exact same spot.
Sorry, that's how you recruit Carlos. Play hardball.
And
just lie to him.
yeah, and so I still didn't have a full blown job offer from anybody yet, and I was like, well, like I'm gonna roll over here where I can do X, Y, and Z, and hope it goes, good.
Sure.
And she was like, all right, thank you for your time, blah blah blah, and thanked her and everything, and then I think that was like in February or maybe March, and then in like middle of April, I got the call from Slater. He was like, hey, congratulations, you're good to go. And I was like at work on campus, and I like in the rec, and I just kind of like dropped down, and I was like, hell yeah, like I finally made it. Like I'll never forget that feeling.
Same.
And so, obviously, it worked out all the way how it should have up to this point. So
yeah,
I definitely don't regret my decision.
And now you're a veteran rookie.
Right. No, sorry, and they can cut whatever they want to cut. But yeah, I gotta know what's the agency. Okay.
So
was I in your board?
no, so I
Because sometimes that was my
so
role.
you really didn't like talk that much. So you had like a broken arm or like you were some type of injury. Because I remember I walked into the bathroom and you had something. Maybe you just got a tattoo. I don't know what. Your arm was red for some reason.
Probably, yeah.
It might have been your
His
tattoos.
tattoo, it broke out. Real bad rash right there.
Shut up.
And so it was you, now LT Dell, and Lance were on my board.
Okay.
And nobody, like, typically you always hear, like, there's either two hard asses and one nice guy,
Sure.
or like some type of dynamic like that.
Right. Usually.
Yeah. And so when I went to this board, I already got my conditional from the other city from.
Oh, okay.
And so I wasn't like really nervous. I was nervous, but
Yeah.
not just like I'd already been through a board. Like I kind of knew how it was probably going to go.
Right.
And I just went and they asked like the exact same questions as did.
Oh.
And so I was kind of already knew kind of the game, and I was like we're chilling.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end, you come out, you make your decision. I came back in, and
Do they do that? And do they tell you straight up? I'll start using the name, but in that agency, do they tell you straight up you pass or fail?
yeah. So I knew it was the same thing. Like, I don't think I hopped out, came back in, and they're like, hey, you passed. On that board, it was like 5 people.
Oh wow.
It was like 2 dudes, 2 like normal officers, like a SWAT commander, and then like 2 deputy chiefs, or however they do their ranking over there.
Jeez.
So there was like 5 dudes, I think, on that board. But when I came back in here for GP, you're like, hey, you got the conditional, blah blah blah. And I think one of y'all was like, hey, we know you're in the process with this other agency. And I looked at you, and you were like, if you want to get cats out of trees, go to this agency. But if you want to go chase people, come to GP. And I was like,
That's dope.
okay, cool. Yeah, we'll rock and roll with that all day.
You taking notes, Carlos?
Hey, I want to be on the board just so I can tell somebody, all right, leave the room so I can talk about you.
Oh, it's a super, like, it's probably like
very
a
awkward.
minute or 2 minutes, but it feels like forever.
Yeah.
And sometimes it actually, depending on who the recruiter is, it might
sometimes
be
it
a
is.
5, 10, 15, 20 or whatever conversation. And I've heard of guys having to go back in for like a second-ish type of board.
Follow-up question.
Yeah, to kind of like, because someone on the board is like iffy on them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like that's just,
Yep.
it's just prolonging something, or, either way it goes, you're just like, this is a shitty feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. My board I was one of the guys waiting for a while.
Were you?
Yeah. Well, that didn't go to my board.
Yeah, they told me, did you practice? I'm like, no, sir. Why are you just so relaxed? I don't know. It is what it is. I don't know. You're a used car salesman. Okay, sir. I'm not going to yell at you. That's what you're talking about. That's funny. Well, okay, so thank God you picked us over the other city. So now that you are, what did he say, a veteran
rookie.
Veteran rookie.
What do you want to do? Now that you're here and you've seen some of these other departments or units that you talked about, what else do you want to do?
Well, hopefully I make FTO.
You will, bro. You'll make it.
I want to do that, and then I want to try to get on SWAT, and then down the line, I eventually want to go to the 4th floor CID of either NARCs or majors. So I've shadowed NARCs. I've kind of gotten a feel for that. It's a very different form of policing.
Yes,
You're very much so behind, the door, making all the moves, and then, everybody else kind of gets to do a lot of like the fun stuff, quote unquote. But it's a very different type of doing stuff.
That's CID in general.
Yeah, I've only shadowed them, but
Yeah.
it's very much so you have to be okay with like not getting in the car chase, especially for our NARCs, the stuff they kind of do. So it's definitely I want to put my time in patrol and then go upstairs. So
Yeah, it's one of those. You get really excited, but you get a good case, and you go to work it up, and you get the search warrants, and or, you're playing out the vehicle takedowns or whatever the case, whatever you're going to do.
right,
And then you hand it over.
exactly.
And you sit there and you watch, like, God, that looks fun.
Yeah, like you coming in and you see all like the SWAT
Yeah.
guys, they're all like out there, and it's like, they probably have one of the CID that are going to hit a warrant for the guys,
Yeah.
or for that unit, and so it's
Yeah.
like you're doing all the paperwork, and then somebody else is getting to
And then they tell you when it's clear, and then you show
Yeah.
up and feel like a firefighter, and you're like, okay, I'll get here now.
Oh, man. All right, so how long have you say you've been married? How long?
I've been married for a little over a year and a half, but I've been with my wife for it was 7 years in September.
Yeah,
you made her wait.
Yeah, so we met in college. So I've been in college for 2 years, and she was a freshman or incoming freshman. So we dated for like the 4 years in college, and then I graduated and had a year and a half ahead of her. So she
Right.
still had 3 semesters to go. And so Sam Houston is down in Huntsville.
Right.
Obviously, I'm working up here. So it's like 2.5, 3-ish hours away. That's nothing super crazy,
Right.
but it's not like I can just pop down, a 45-minute drive and, see
Right.
her. And so I told myself, like, hey, if I can make it through the academy and FTO and all that stuff, and we're still good, then, I'm gonna propose.
Mm-hmm.
So she graduated, I think, in December of 20, and then we lived together until April. Well, stayed living together, but till April, and then that's when I proposed to her.
Okay, cool.
So that was engaged for a year, and then like almost a year to the day, we got married.
Yeah.
So
you were already a cop when you got married.
yeah, I was already a couple when I
Okay.
got married, but we've been together. Like
Right.
she's known the entire time of what I wanted to do. There was no like surprises, and she's
Sure.
been super supportive of it.
You notice any changes or anything?
in her and me?
Well, I guess either way, or as far as the relationship goes, y'all being together prior to law enforcement and then going through that transition into the profession.
Yeah, I think she's a super brilliant woman, and so I think she picks up on how, like, kind of like I think all cops do. And you walk in a room, you kind of just like kind of look around and kind of give that little check just to see who's in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed her doing that kind of stuff. Like she's now very
She's
calm in the chaos type of thing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I mean, she's like, this is kind of like slightly off topic, but she's from down in the Houston area. In her neighborhood, she heard this like loud crash. She runs outside, and I think the dude ended up being drunk, but he like smoked a pole and wasn't wearing his belt. So, he was pretty messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so she ran over there, like somebody else is like freaking out, screaming, crying, and she's over all calm, like trying to hold the guy, trying to, kind of be there because he ended up dying. He died in her arms, actually. And so she's able to sit there and like calmly, like, hey, I need you to call 911. This is what, this is what the dude's doing. He has, whatever injuries. And she was able to be super calm and just collective while everybody else was spazzing out.
Right.
And so I think she's the same way. Like if I come home and it was like a crappy day, whether it was just busy or I saw, something that sucked, she's not blowing me up of like, why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z? It's just like, hey, like, did you have a shitty day or a shitty night? And I was like, yeah. She's like, do you want to talk about it? I'm like, not right now, eventually. But she's like, all right, cool. And so whenever I'm ready to kind of talk about it, she's like, just listen. She doesn't really ask 100 questions. It's just, hey, tell me what you want to tell me so I can get it off my chest.
Yeah.
And so I think it's definitely, she's a great cop wife. She understands the job, understands like her role within it, and doesn't add stress to me
That's
on
good.
top of the stress we have at work.
That's huge.
I was gonna say that is that's the what I'm trying to say. That's it.
The key to success.
Yeah, that is the key to success.
Like she's ridden out with me like 5 or 6 times.
Oh, cool.
Like
Jeez.
she loves it.
Does she want to join?
No. She's like that tall on a good day in heels. Like
We got one of those.
We have some short
She didn't say
people.
the girl we have. She didn't play around.
yeah.
Yeah, we got some short people.
But she started off when we first started dating. She was a CJ major.
Okay.
And then she changed it to marketing or business.
Okay. I was about
And-
to ask if she's like in the medical field or something.
No, yeah, she does marketing and business, or in the business field, and she's like, that's her lane. She's super good. She could sell ice to an Eskimo. Like she's just super good at her job. And I think once she saw that dude die in her arms, she was like, hey, like, I'm calm right now, but like I don't think I could do this every single day, or dealing with people like yelling at us or whatever. She's like, yeah, that's not for me. She's like, if that's what you want to go do, cool, go do it. Like I'll support you, but that's not what I want to do every day.
Yeah.
So like she kind of just realized early that it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
So
That's probably good. I mean, I know people are successful with being married with 2 spouses that are cops, but I've always thought it would be easier to be married to a non-cop just because there's kind of that sense of normalcy.
right, kind of like the told in the academy of like you need to have your group of friends that aren't cops,
Right. Yeah.
so you don't just 24/7.
Yeah.
talk
I
about
can
it.
just put the work stuff in the box out there and just be home.
100%.
yeah.
I will say though, as far as her, being a calming influence, not contributing to the stress, as awesome as that is, kids don't like that at all. I don't mean to keep bringing kids up because you mentioned that you didn't have any, but I was like, I got a couple of them, and they lack those perceptive powers.
Yeah, there's quite a few dudes on the shift that have kids, and I've heard the stories of just like they call in sick. I'm like, oh, like, are you good? And they're like, oh, I'm not. Like, yeah, I got to deal with X, Y, and Z. And you're like, oh,
I'm good.
Yeah. It's like I'm fine. It's
there's so little in my life that I'm responsible for the stress, unless you can't have a kid.
Your sick bank doesn't belong to you. Just understand
exactly.
that. Yeah. I tell people all the time, hell, if I'm not at work, it ain't because I'm sick.
Right.
I stay home with the kiddos.
I just did a full week.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, all last week.
Yeah. He was probably watching the Rangers play. That's what he was doing.
Hey,
I was doing something.
Hey, bro, they are balling
back on top. We have like a mutual friend that's a big Astros fan.
I was going to ask if your wife was.
She doesn't really care either way. Like
So like most Astros fans, just like
exactly.
whenever they're doing good.
Whenever they're doing good, they're fans. But it's been like, because we went on like a 10-day like where we just sucked,
brutal.
And we went from like the top and just tanked bad. Yeah. And like all my buddies are from the Houston area, so they're all Astro fans, and they're like, "What?" Especially when we lost to them in our series here.
Yep.
They're like, "What's going on?" Da, 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 da. And it's like now it's like dead silent. Like,
well, because they got swept by the Royals.
Yeah, they got swept by like one of the worst teams in baseball. So nobody's really running their mouth right now.
How many games left? Like
6 or 7.
Yeah. So we just need the
we
Astros.
won, last night. Sorry.
Yeah. We need the Astros to lose how many more games?
Everyone.
Oh.
Forever.
Yeah, forever.
All right, we'll see.
Well, we've been going for a while. I don't want to go too long, but I know we were talking a little bit before. You said that you had a funny story about getting in trouble.
Yeah, from the academy. So he's a sergeant now, but at the time he was our academy coordinator.
Okay.
And so I don't know how it's ran now, but when I was in the academy, we started at the end of the day in formation. Mm-hmm. So from for it's not at the military term, I think, or thing.
Yeah. Did this person also do that in a previous life?
Yes.
Okay.
It's one of the most like scariest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
And so we're at formation, and so we have like our class president or whatever his title is, and then me, and then everybody else. So we had 10 people. So it's a very relatively small class. And he comes up, is talking about, it was like either Thursday or Friday going into our weekend, and he's walking around. We're like 2-3 months into the academy, so I started in August, so it's like around October sometime, kind of like right now. And he's walking around just telling us like, whatever he needs to tell us. And so to dismiss us, he has to go back to the same spot. So he's walking past me and then kind of stops between me and one of my classmates. And he's still just looking at the CV. So he's looking at the front of the CVE doors.
Okay.
And so I'm, at attention, and I'm like, why is he stopping? Like, what does he see? And then he just, I guess it's called an about face, where you just turn, and he's looking like right in my eyes. And like, so I'm looking kind of down at him because I'm taller than him. And I'm looking at him, I'm just like, oh my God, like what did I do? 1,000 things are running through my mind right now. And so backtracking, so our entire academy, we were like, you had to be drinking water. Like they gave us water bottles,
right?
And like you constantly had to be drinking. So they come by and check them. It was full. Why aren't you drinking water? If it was empty, why is it in? So you just can never win.
Yes.
And so, like I'm a huge dude, but I have like one of the smallest bladders in the world. So I'm killing water all day, like just killing water. And so right before formation, I go pee, come out to formation.
Okay.
So he's staring at me. He kind of looks at me, looks down like real quick, and looks back up at me. And he like says my last name. He's like, Cody. Oh, yes, sir. Why can I see your blouse through your trousers? And I'm like, oh. So like I like go to like check it, like that he's lying to me or something.
Right.
And he's like, no, don't move. Okay. He's and he says, see another officer after formation.
Right.
Okay. So everyone's leaving. Everyone's kind of looking back at me like, hey, you have fun with whatever's about to happen. Like, we're going home right now.
Yeah.
And I go and see this other officer who was a professional in making people's lives hell.
Right.
When it comes to PT. And it's like 100-something degrees outside. Where I got basically a full belt on of like all of our stuff. I'm in full vest. I'm in like the terrible brown uniform. just shined my boots. So,
uniform so bad.
And he's like, all right, let's start with some burpees. Cool, on the concrete. So doing that, it was like a 30, 40 minute. I just got smoked for like 40 minutes. And so now I will constantly walk around and I always check to make sure my zipper's up. Because I don't.
Which probably makes you look super creepy.
Oh, he's super weird. Like, why is this kid doing, X, Y? I'm like, dude, like, I've been here, I've done whatever. I don't ever want to get done, like, smoked like that again. So I'm like constantly just, like, it'd be like 4 hours since I last peed. I'll just make sure it didn't like fall down somehow, or I've been going 4 hours with it down.
Loose zipper.
That's funny.
So, it's, yeah, that was a terrible day. So,
Did they just hate you going into that day, or?
No, I mean, I doing dumb, normal, like, rookies or recruit stuff. So nothing like that. And he's just like, because he was, this certain now sergeant is all about, your appearance. And so when your shirt's sticking out through your zipper.
Well, and for perspective, for anybody who's in the military, this individual was a drill instructor in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Which,
and he does the thing with his eyebrow. Yeah, he did that. Like,
do you ever do the weird yelling? I don't know if you know what it is, but like the Marine Corps drill instructor screaming voice.
I'm sure. I mean, I've been yelled at him by him many times.
On?
You should.
That'd be a good time.
Yeah. He's got a lot of stories. Like he's
I've heard a few.
He's a
They're
super
awesome.
like one of my favorite. I owe a lot to that man. Like I'm forever in debt to him.
Yeah.
Because he promoted and he was my sergeant for like a bid before he went back to the training center. And he's like largely of why I'm who I am, how I do things because of him.
Yeah.
Because he was like my first like actual person of like showing that, hey, this is how to be a cop.
He's a good
and just to see the respect that other people give him who are like way older than him or been doing whatever. And it's like when you got people respecting you like that, like you're obviously doing something right.
Yeah.
And so like I will forever be in debt to him. And that was just a really shitty day that I don't really ever want to revisit. So.
But wait, you said your class went inside. They didn't.
They left.
They didn't
Like,
want to
they
come
went home.
out and like, hey, I'll pick up some of those burpees. For
No, like there was no paddle buddy. It was just like, hey, you're eating that sandwich like all on your own. Like you bought and paid for it. Like we are going home before I want zero part of that.
I told you check your uniform. I'm going in.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, it was ever since that day, I'd be walking and my classmates would be, hey, check your zipper. Like we're about to go and do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, and making sure I'm all good, squared away, and never once did it happen ever again. So
That's funny. Well, when you were describing it, it occurred to me too. I'm not as tall as you, but I'm taller than average. And there's a very, it's a uniquely vulnerable feeling to be taller than the scarier person who's shorter and in authority over you. Because like I had some drill instructors like that were like not meant to be played with.
Yeah.
And to be like, you want so bad to just like sit down, like to make yourself like you feel like your height is like an insult and it's making him angrier, and it's just like this vicious cycle.
But he like didn't even yell. It was just like
You're
just like,
he does at least, and I'm sure it was different in the military, but he does have a very effective way of being quiet, but then also very loud.
Oh yeah, I've been yelled at him, but it was like kind of like when your dad's like not angry at you, he's disappointed.
Yeah.
Like I just like he was like channeling everything into like not just go off on me, which I would have much preferred that. But him just kind of looking at me, raising his eyebrow,
Like
I was like,
disappointed him.
yo, yeah. I was like, oh, I definitely messed up. Like I'm about to pay for it. Like,
And, that probably sounds silly to a lot of people, non-military law enforcement particularly.
Yeah.
But it is a good lesson. I mean, is it the end of the world if you didn't zip your pants? Most times, no. But the job requires so much attention to detail and something that is a good lesson because you might not intend to be harmful and messing up or not paying attention to detail. But in this profession, you can have the best intentions in the world, but you slip up in the wrong way, you're done.
well, your appearance is everything.
Yeah.
So if you walk up and like this is what this sergeant taught us all the time. Of like if you walk up looking like you don't belong there, you're gonna get in fights. They're gonna take off. They're not gonna whatever. So if you look like you're squared away, like the rest kind of follows in line.
Yeah. Cool. Anything we didn't talk about?
No, I wanted to ask, with some of the newbies coming in, like you said, you're not a lateral. What advice do you give a brand new person or officer that's like, you know what, I want to go into law enforcement. 2023, we're on the verge of 24. What would you say to them?
Just stay humble.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of caught myself, being that 1.5 to 2 year officer of like, not that I was doing anything illegal, but just thinking that I knew everything. I've been in, a couple, not in shootings, but I've worked a couple shootings, been in a couple pursuits, and thinking that I was that guy.
Yeah.
And then when you try to go into specialized units or anything like that, everybody kind of knows that. So it's like, if you don't stay humble, and if you're like super cocky, I know everything kind of guy, you're not going to go anywhere. Yeah. And so like, you got to be teachable, and you got to like be able to admit when you make mistakes and own them.
Yeah.
And like, I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to like pass along to the couple dudes that I've trained, and just like the newer guys on my shift. Like, hey, again, I'm not some 20-year vet.
Yeah.
I'm just a dude that's been here 30 seconds longer than you have.
Yeah.
Like, try to learn from my failures so you don't make the same mistakes. So that's the only advice that I can give, is just stay humble, be coachable,
that's spot on.
And own your mistakes when you make them, because you're gonna make them.
Yeah.
100% you're gonna
Hey,
make them.
you do yourself no favors, or anybody else no favors by pretending like you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And I always say, bro, I hate the cocky officers anyway. Like, I don't want to be around them. And
nobody does.
yeah, Nate will tell you, we've been doing this a little while.
Yeah.
I say it like that. I've been doing it a little while. If you, I know everything, and I've seen and heard a few of them, stay away from me, because you can learn something almost every day. Every day is different. There's no such thing as the same call.
Right. I think I've been told, like, if you think you know everything, that's when you need to retire.
Yeah.
So
Hang it up. Stay away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well,
Good.
That's good.
That's good advice.
Yeah, I like that.
I appreciate y'all having me.
Well, appreciate you sitting down. Appreciate your continued Texas Rangers fandom.
Always.
My veteran rookie. Oh man.
Hopefully we'll be going back to the series before long. All right. Well, appreciate it. Until next time.
Till next time.
Later.